In today's episode, we're going to get real with ourselves. Over time, we have all have either consciously or unconsciously adopted bad habits that constitute obstacles to our dream pursuit. And those habits have created unhealthy patterns and dependencies that are not always serving us well. Painful ruts that we can't shake, self-talk that keeps us stuck, views about our capacity to perform necessary tasks that don't thrill us, time management issues that aren't fueling progress, on and on and on. The painful results of unchecked bad habits can become overwhelming if we, one, aren't aware of them, or two, don't have a working strategy to address them. But we don't have to stay in our pain. If progress is to be gained, if positive change is to be effected, we must deal with these bad boys. But how? Let's dive in. And let's experience the freedom that comes with this one simple strategy to quit what's holding you back. That's all coming up next, right here on Stop Doubting Your Dream. Stay tuned. If you have a deep-rooted dream you long to pursue but feel held back by self-doubt, the possibility of failure, and the relentless demands of everyday life, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jeff Meyer, and I know that taking the leap of faith to make your dream a reality and overcome the seeds of doubt planted by those who say it's too risky can feel overwhelming and discouraging sometimes, and cause you to question whether or not your dream is worth pursuing at all. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be an either-or choice. It's possible to pursue your dream without risking your stability or security in the process. And each week on the show, I'm going to show you and give you practical action steps you need to turn your dream into a viable source of income so you can live without regret, reshape your future, and create the meaningful change you want to see in the world, all without leaving your day job. So if you're someone who's ready to stop doubting your dream and start living it, let's dive in. Welcome back. This is episode 69, Bad Habits. They get in the way of our progress. And as a result, we suffer. We suffer from negative self-talk. We suffer from lack of productivity. We suffer from time mismanagement. Bad habits significantly hinder us from making progress towards achieving our goals and our dreams. Think about some of those pain points, like the lack of discipline and consistency that doesn't allow you to make the progress you should be, and then you feel guilty and shame about it. Or the health and well-being issues. We could get into the unhealthy habits like poor diet and lack of exercise, what our internal conversation in our head is doing to our sleep that affects our physical and mental health, reducing overall energy and efficiency. Oh man, we could talk about the bad spending habits, the impulsive purchases, poor financial management that creates financial strain because of our bad financial habits. Oh man, we've talked so much about this, a negative mindset, self-sabotage, talking ourselves into lack of motivation and confidence, preventing us from taking the necessary steps toward the goals that are within our reach. Man, we could keep going. Social isolation, the relationship strains that come because of our bad habits. Not even to mention the impaired decision-making that bad habits can create. Substance abuse that impair our judgment or decision-making abilities. And then just giving over to the things that are easier and neglecting the important goals that we need to achieve in our daily routines to move us forward. Bad habits can just stop us dead in our tracks in our dream pursuit. There's got to be a way to address these, to deal with them. So before I give you the strategy that I want to share with you, a simple, reproducible strategy to deal with these bad habits, to confront them and address them, I'd like to just share something that's been going on for me this year in terms of bad habits, a little bit of vulnerability here, because you are not alone. I struggle with this too. Every entrepreneur does. Bad habits get in the way. So this year, I have been suffering as a result of poor diet, lack of movement, and I would present to you excessive scrolling on my phone. One of the examples I'm going to give a little bit later in showing you the strategy to combat this bad habit involves my excessive scrolling and why I do it and what I can do instead. So the first step to being able to implement the strategy of taking care and confronting these bad habits is to actually be intentional, to get introspective about what's getting in the way of you pursuing your dream. And so I would suggest to you, one of the practices you can use is a quarterly review. You can do a monthly review, a weekly review, a daily review if you'd like. But over the course of a quarter, we can actually see a pattern that starts to emerge with our habits. So do a quarterly review at the end of every quarter. We're coming up on one pretty soon here at the end of September. Go back and ask yourself this simple question and pull out a journal and do some writing about it. Here's the question. What's getting in the way of me making the progress I desire to make? So as you think about your dream pursuit, you think about the goals that you've put in place, the pursuit to realize that idea that you have in your heart and in your head. What's getting in the way of you making progress? And you don't have to share it with anybody else, although sometimes if you really want to get vulnerable, open up and share it with your partner, share it with your husband or wife, share it with a dear friend, and ask for their input. They might have some things to say. What is getting in the way of making the progress I desire to make? And for me, that's what gave me the answer to share with you just a little bit ago. Poor diet, lack of movement, excessive scrolling. Habits that I want to do something about, okay? Habits that are not serving me well. And I want to get rid of them. I want to quit them. I want to quit what's holding me back. Once we have those listed, now we can actually deal with them. You can't deal with the bad habits until you see them, make them public, and acknowledge them. Okay. Now, what's the strategy? What's the strategy to get rid of the bad habits? Most of our attempts to get rid of bad habits don't work because we're attempting to quit, to remove them. Doesn't work. You tell me to stop doing something, you tell an entrepreneur to stop doing something, more than likely, I will want to do it even more. More than likely, they'll want to do it even more. So, I'm going to give you 6 steps, and I'm going to give you some examples. Here's the strategy. Here's how to get rid of your bad habit that is not serving you well. Number 1, I want you to think replace, not remove. Okay? Replace, not remove. You don't remove a bad habit. You replace it with a good one. You replace it with one that serves you well. All right? You replace it with something that is going to help you move forward in your dream pursuit with greater efficiency and productivity. Replace, not remove. Number 2, if you got a piece of paper open, write these 3 words across the top of the paper with dashes in between them. On the left side, write the word Q, CUE. Cue, habit, reward. Every habit has a cue that initiates it, and every habit has a reward. There's a reason we keep doing it. There's a reward attached to it, something that benefits us, even if it's short term. And a lot of times we don't even know what it is. So it's good to think about it. So think replace, not remove. Then look at this rhythm: cue, habit, reward. Let's start with cue. What's the cue? What's the feeling or the situation that immediately precedes the habit that you want to change? Okay. For some, it's getting in the car, turning on the engine that leads them to light up the cigarette. Getting in that car that gets them to get on their phone immediately and start talking to somebody. That's a habit. And that habit may not be serving you well. So what's the cue? What's the feeling or situation that immediately precedes the habit you want to change? So here, time for some vulnerability. Let me give you some examples. Example number 1 in my life: cue, boredom in the middle of the day. Habit, surfing the web, scrolling mindlessly. The reward, stimulation. Sometimes I scroll and I find a comedian that makes me laugh, find a good piece of music that makes me sing. It stimulates, the reward is getting me out of my boredom, but the surfing the web is the habit that is not serving me well. And you know why that is, right? Because you can spend so much time doing it and never get back on track. That's example number 1. Example number 2, getting home from work. Cue, habit, turning on the TV. Reward, decompress and chill. Get outside of my head, which is a relief. And so turning on the TV is not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes it can become something that's not serving me well, and I want to change it. All right. Example number 3, cue, running into a roadblock in my work to pursue my dream. It can be technology. It could be someone not responding quickly enough, whatever it is, running into a roadblock. Habit, shutting down, quit trying. The reward, relief. Relief from running into the roadblock. The habit that does not serve me well is shutting down and quit trying. All right, I promise you 6 steps. So here's number 4. Keep the cue and the reward the same. You don't have to deal with the cue. You don't have to deal with the reward. Okay? Keep the cue and the reward the same. Step number 5, change the habit. Replace the habit with something that will serve you well, that still follows the same cue and still gives you the same reward. And then step number 6, which may be obvious to you by this point, I hope it is, brainstorm alternative habits. If we're going to replace a habit that is not serving us well with one that will serve us well, we're going to have to brainstorm some alternative habits. And you don't have to do this on your own. Ask a friend to brainstorm with you. Tell them what you're up to. Ask your partner, your husband, your spouse, your wife to brainstorm some alternative habits with you. Sometimes they come up with some really good ones. And so let's go back to our examples. Number 1, cue, boredom in the middle of the day. Habit, surfing the web. Alternative possibility, doodle on a drawing pad next to me. Okay? Reward, stimulation. Example number 2, cue, remember getting home from work? What was the habit? Turning on the TV. What was the reward? Decompress and chill. Well, what is an alternative habit that might serve me well better than turning on the TV? Maybe instead of turning on the TV, I can open a book and read for a few minutes. That'll allow me to decompress and chill. It's also stimulating to my brain and it might be better for me than turning on the TV for hours. All right. Example number 3, remember running into a roadblock? The habit was shutting down and quit trying, and it brought temporary relief. Well, maybe I could replace shutting down and quit trying with take a deep breath, maybe 3 deep breaths, work on my belly breath, get up and move, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, get up and walk up the stairs and down the stairs if it's a bad day, or walk outside for 5 minutes, and then come back and ask for help. Instead of shutting down and quit trying, which keeps me from making progress, I want to replace it with take a deep breath, move, and ask for help. And that should also bring me some relief. All right. So just to review the 6 steps: think, replace, not remove. Cue, habit, reward. What's the cue? What's the feeling or situation that immediately precedes the habit you want to change? Keep the cue and the reward the same. Change the habit, and then brainstorm alternative habits. And then you guys, give it a try. Experiment with it. If that alternative habit doesn't work for you, if it doesn't result in the same reward, try something else. Be patient with yourself. But the most important thing for me in this episode is think about this process as replacing, not removing. So I'd like to give you the opportunity right now to give this a try. Sit down, write down the cue, write the habit that you want to change, write the reward that is given to you by that habit that's not serving you well. Then go and brainstorm alternative habits and give that new habit a try in replacing the old habit. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of Stop Doubting Your Dream. If you'd like to connect with me on this episode, if you want to share with me the cue, the habit, reward, if you're stuck and you can't think of what the reward is or what the habit is, and you'd like some free spot coaching via email, drop me an email at jeffmeyercoaching.com. If you want to talk about any other episode or make a comment on my social media feeds, you can get all that information on my show notes. Please get in touch with me. I want to know who you are and see how this show is benefiting you, helping you think a little differently about the dream pursuit, and help you stop doubting your dream. If you like the show today, would you do me a favor and download it and then share the episode with a friend? And if you haven't left a review yet, feel free to leave a review. I have 76 as of today, 5-star reviews. I love it. I would love to double that number. So write a review. Thank you so much for listening. Next week on the show, I'm going to share how underestimating your value is leading to all kinds of mindset and behavioral barriers that are getting in the way of your dream pursuit. And armed with a deeper awareness of this silent killer, you can reconsider your value, not minimize your contribution, and free yourself from the mindsets and behaviors that are keeping you stuck, and finally get after your dream. Because your dream matters. And regardless of the results you achieve in pursuing it, you matter. You're here for a purpose. Join me back here next week. Until then, the journey towards your dream begins today. Take action with a single step.